My mom asked me to see the movie Woman in Gold with her last night because I'm staying over for the weekend. Generally, I dislike movies that my mom wants to see, and for that reason, I don't like watching movies with her. But last night, I felt I needed to keep my mouth shut and just watch a movie with my mom. And this movie is not the best, but I will say this. Woman in Gold was more enjoyable to me than I thought it was going to be. To give a bit of context to this movie, Woman in Gold is a story about Maria Altmann. Maria Altmann is a woman who fled her home country of Austria when the Nazis invaded the country. And Maria is trying to get back what is rightfully hers, a gold painting of her aunt, which was stolen by the Nazis when they put her and everyone in her father's home under house arrest. And years later, she wants the painting back. But the painting is worth millions of dollars, and the Austrian museum that owns it isn't going to give it up so easily. Currently, I'm learning how to speak German, and when I was watching this, I felt so good about myself during the parts when I could understand quite a few of the words that were exchanged between some of the characters when they were speaking in German. Now, like I said, Woman in Gold was not the best, but one thing that it did, admittedly, was it held my interest from the beginning to the end and was well balanced in the things that it showed us. Here's what I mean when I say well balanced. On some level, Woman in Gold is actually really boring, especially when it comes to the scenes involving any sort of legal jargon. Those parts were usually when Ryan Reynolds and Helen Mirren were on the screen. That's not the actor's fault, that was just how their part of the story was to me. But to balance that out, we didn't just see Maria's story as she was fighting for the painting, we also get to see her story as she ran for her life from the Nazis. And what really interested me in this part of the movie was when we got to see what life was like before and during the time when the Nazis came into Austria. And my favorite scene in this movie was when Maria and her husband were fleeing Austria. I was quite taken with this scene because it was the most exciting thing that happened in this movie. And it was the most difficult thing, I think, that Maria Altmann had to do in this movie. I think that one thing that I really liked about this movie was just how much depth that they gave to quite a few of the characters in this. For instance, Daniel Brühl's character had some pretty great depth to him. Daniel's character, Hubertus, was a character that didn't really appear while Ryan and Helen's characters were in the United States. When Hubertus showed up, he seemed to have no real purpose for being there, and that was because he just seemed to show up to help Maria and Randall for no reason at all. I mean, he gave a vague explanation for why, but other than that, he didn't explain why. However, I think it's important to mention that near the end of the movie, he reveals the real reason as to why he was wanting to help out Maria and Randall. He said his father was a Nazi and he wanted to atone for his father's sins and do the opposite of what his father did. And I think that was the perfect reason for him to want to help out Randall and Maria. And Maria, as a character, was a very well-rounded character as well. I enjoyed most of the people that were cast in this movie. Ryan Reynolds wasn't bad either. He's actually becoming one of my favorite actors, even though he wasn't at first. And Helen Mirren was great as well, as she owned the role of Maria Altmann. I always think that it's so awesome when someone just completely owns their role in a movie or a play. Personally, I enjoyed Woman in Gold. Fine, I'll admit it, I did enjoy The Woman in Gold. Like I said, it's not the best. Most likely I won't watch this again. My mom has a particular taste of movies that she enjoys, and Woman in Gold wasn't bad, but I think viewing it once was enough for me. Woman in Gold gets 3.5 stars out of 5.